We're going to have a little brief roundtable discussion with a colleague of mine. The gentleman over here is for those of you who do not know him, that is not Leon Russell. That is John Pullen. John is a collector, a gentleman, and my competitor. We are oftentimes going head-to-head in auctions for the same item, and it all depends on who burns out first. But John is a collector, and he's got some comments to offer. And so, John, I turn over the microphone to you.
Yes, my name is John Pullen. I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I am a collector of 1715 fleet and Spanish colonial coins since 1970. And I've had the great excitement during that time of really living through, collecting, and watching as the whole progression of the 1715 fleet has taken place. As opposed to some of the other people who have spoken to you the last 2 days, which has really been terrific, I'm different. They were dealers, scholars, historians, researchers, scientists. I'm a collector. I don't claim to be a superior numismatist. I'm a collector. And over the years, I've collected a full range of coins from Potosi old denominations in silver, Mexico cobs, Lima gold, Mexico pillar and portraits, and fleet material. Over the same period of time, I've disposed of some of those. Dan sold a collection of my Mexico cobs, I think in auction number 7, and Ponterio sold my Potosi cobs. And all that time, I've continued to focus and build on 1715 because it became my love. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what a collector is. I saw a cartoon in the paper the other day. It was 3 or 4 children outside in a yard. One was on a swing, one was on a merry-go-round, one sitting on a blanket, and all of them had either an iPad, a tablet, a cell phone, and they were sitting outside. And the parents looked out from the window and said, "Isn't it nice to see the kids playing outside?" Well, that was not the case when I was a child. I grew up in a post-war neighborhood in Dallas, Texas, and everyone in that neighborhood collected. We were collectors. If you had no money, you collected butterflies and rocks. You had your neighbors, we had very little, you had your neighbors cut off the stamps from the envelopes and you built a stamp collection. And you also could grab pennies and find an Indian head or a buffalo nickel and some change and build a coin collection. Unfortunately, about a week after you built it, you cashed it in and bought baseball cards. But during that whole time, we were collectors. And that's what I was. I got crazy about treasure from my dad's bookshelf. He had Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island. He had J. Frank Dovey's Coronado's Children. And my older brother had Treasure Hunters, this 1961 publication by Robert Nesmith and John Potter. And inside there's a section of pictures of Art McKee and a lot of treasure coins, and I was hooked. I had to get into it. I knew I was a collector. I was hooked. And while I was in my first year of law school and broke, I had 2 children, a wife, and no money. I managed to spend $1 on a coin at a local coin store. It was 1741 2 reali that was sea salvaged. And then a couple years later, I had a few more dollars, but not many. I attended the 1972 Schulman auction of 1,200 of the greatest pieces that ever came out of the fleet. And I bought my first 1715 fleet coin. Well, over the course of years, I did a little better than that. I was able to pay off my student loans and begin to collect. Collectors come at you from various directions. Some collect by shape. They like the birds, the cats, flowers. Some collect 8 reals only. Some collect by type, some by king. I got into it really collecting a wide variety, trying to do all the dates, all the denominations, and putting it together. And with that, my learning experience is all contained in this yellow book. And it's a checklist of everything I ever owned, and in many cases, things I saw, excuse me, saw but didn't own. And it tells you something very clearly when you look at, especially since our topic now is mainly Mexico, it tells you there is an unquestionable relationship between a ship going down and the bulk of the coins that are available and surviving from Mexico. I can look at, as an example, from 1607 to 13, many coins of many denominations. I don't have a check mark from 1714 to 18. Then you got the Atocha coming in with some Mexican coins. But that pattern continues to flow. So I had a terrific challenge trying to put together runs of all denominations. But when you get to the fleet is a very exciting area to collect. You can collect, you can collect runs certainly from 1714 of both gold and silver, probably 1713. I'm missing, I'm almost there in 1715, but that's where the fun is, when you really go out and seek and find and recover these coins. When you get into the 1732 and beyond period with pillars and portraits, given enough money in a reasonable period of time, you can put together a very extensive collection. You can't in the Cobs of Mexico. There are great swaths that are not available at all, but you get into that fleet era, one of the things that really produce and help with numismatics is that you can really truly be a collector. The varieties of gold are staggering from the Mexico men. Same with the Lima coins. One of the things also that I was thinking about is everyone was speaking of the effect here of the fleet on numismatics. I think one of the biggest things is that the collector has set a value far more than scrap metal. The Royale that was just found, if it sells for $400,000 or $500,000, has got around $1,000 of gold in it in today's market. Dan sold a 1715 8 Reale last November for over $20,000 that has $14 worth of silver in it. So the collector is such an important part of this because they set the incentive for many other people, scholars, salvagers, retailers, dealers. They create the market that allows so much of that to happen, and without that, we just have an entirely different viewpoint about all these wonderful collectibles. So I wanted to just get a brief one, and I'm short on time, and tell you a little bit about myself and collecting and an overview. And I think we're ready for any questions that you want to fire up here at this point.
I have a question, John. Where are you going to be at the next auction?
Where are you going to be? The last auction, I told Benny he had an emergency call from OJ's lawyer out in the lobby, but he didn't take the bait. Okay, well, I think we're up on on your next presentation, aren't we?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes, Al.
Please say, please. Sorry. Hopefully both of you gentlemen are at the next auction, because I want to watch the show.
I heard that comment from someone else, that they didn't want to come again because all they're going to do is see Ben and I flinging our arms up against each other.
John, can I make a quick comment here? I just wanted to comment from the other side of the aisle on this. Obviously, it's quite nice to see two gentlemen fighting head-to-head over nice coins, but what I always find interesting is that these aren't the only two. This is, when we're talking about the 1715 fleet, there's a wealth of collector base. And you never know who's going to be the wild card. You never know what one particular element of any given coin is going to be appealing to you as a collector more so than the next guy. Granted, we get a little bit of that with Ben and John too. One guy likes it better than the other, but The fact is, when the coin sold for over $20,000, it didn't sell to either one of these two gentlemen here, if that gives you an idea.
I'm just curious, do you have any good stories about people coming in with things that were left to them by their grandparents or their parents? Were there good stories about meeting Kip Wagner or walking on the beach and finding something?
Yeah, a little bit. I have to think for a second what might be a good example of that. You know, the problem is that most of the time everything is very well known, and there's not a whole lot in the way of news stories. But what I find interesting is that everybody's got their own little personal anecdote of some sort. What I always enjoyed was talking with Lou Julian. He and I were very close over the years, and he worked closely with my father. And if you look back at our auctions, you'll see I did an interview with Lou, and some things I just didn't even think about. You know, you focus on the important things, but then you don't think about the fact that these guys had to safeguard everything, for example. You know, you find this stuff, and what do you do with it? Do you take it all to the bank and put it in a vault? Well, Lou Julian told me a fun little anecdote that he just kept it all under a bed in his guest bedroom in his house after they made some big find. And he told me that he had somebody come stay with him for one thing or another, and then they just kind of got to talking about the coins they'd found and so forth. And he was shocked when he found out that he was sleeping on top of what might have been $1 million worth of treasure. So, I mean, it's those trivial things. That's really what comes into play, and that's what I like about the 1715 Fleet Society, is that these are the stories that are getting preserved. These don't go with the coins. You know, the coins, I like to say the coins own us. We don't own them. They're going to outlive all of us, I'm sorry to say. But it's the stories that they will go. They are perishable, and it takes a society like this to preserve that. So my hat's off again to the 1715 Fleet people. Do we have more questions?
If I'm walking down the beach, and I'm not a collector, I don't know anything, but I look down and I find this nice gold coin, what do I do next?
Oh, you call me, for sure.
Then you have a cocktail.
Well, Dan, we're going to have to move on to our next. We're going to have to hold off on that. Oh, Gay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Real quick, can you talk to the non-collector, not the big guys that want the top 1%? What's the market for badly struck cobs?
Well, you know, I showed you kind of an average grouping there, and $200 will buy you a decent, do we need a microphone? $200 will buy you a decent piece of 8 in 8 reales. You can pay less and get less, but that's really not a bad entry level for most people. I mean, it's more than just a baseball card for junior or something, but it's still a fairly reasonable level. If you're talking about gold coins, that's where you jump to another level. It wasn't that long ago people would ask me, hey, can I get a Fleet gold coin for $1,000? And I said, well, in theory, yes, but we're talking about the oddball coin that got totally abused over the years and nobody would possibly want. But the irony is that that's actually harder to find than the really choice piece, so it's not worth considering. These days, I would say, in round numbers, you're looking at about $200 for a silver coin and $2,000 for a gold coin. A little bit less on the wholesale side, but man off the street can expect to pay that.
Okay, Dan, I think
Yeah,
we're going to have to
sure.
move on with our next topic. Thank you very much.
If you like this video, we're sure you'll love these 3 videos. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel. CoinWeek is the #1 source online for all things numismatic. Visit www.coinweek.com to take your hobby to the next level.